So, there are no members of the public other than Carol. And we cannot do acceptance of the meetings from September, unfortunately, without a quorum. So basically, either under public forum or update on energy chapter of the Newmarket Master Plan, we can maybe just have you were explaining, Carol, that your community transportation.
We're actually, you have a program. What task is a volunteer driver program. Our mission is to help people maintain their health, independence, and dignity by mobilizing volunteers in 11 communities in the Seacoast. Newmarket is not one of them, but our sister organization that we helped establish 10 years ago, Ready Rides, does serve Newmarket. I believe Ready Rides works a little differently than we do. Task is available to residents age 55 and better, or other adults with a disability that keeps them from driving. And we are pretty, I don't want to say loose, but I'm very generous with what a disability might be, because I know there's many reasons that people don't drive, and they may not be, I hate to use this term, disabled enough to qualify for disability benefits, but, it's better that they're not driving. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's, it can be mental health issues that, medications and such, anxiety, whatever, would make them, why add that stress to someone's life, that sort of thing. So anyway, that's what we do. We've been around for 17 years, serve 11 communities, and last year our 46 plus volunteers provided over 3,000 rides in the area. Ready Rides, I believe, is and we don't have any. The only restriction we have on where we'll go and the purpose of a trip is having a volunteer who's willing. So we have volunteers who take people to exercise classes and social groups, because we firmly believe that there's a whole lot more to living than going to the doctor. Not that doctors aren't important. So that's what we do. I believe Ready Rides is primarily medical appointments and grocery shopping. Once again, very important. Any service is a good service.
Right.
Things I have learned over the years, and I think Ellen's not here to start talking about the idea of some sort of Uber service system.
Yeah.
There's no one size fits all, and we all understand the fact that there is no public transportation, as most of us know it in New Hampshire. And we're looking at Newmarket, and the biggest issue I can see with Newmarket is that you have people who need to go in various directions. There's not a central employment hub. There are people who are going to be working in Durham at the university. There are people who will be working at Exeter Hospital. Yeah. There's people who are working at Pease. There's people who are working off on 125 in Epping. There are a lot of employment centers that people need to get to.
Yeah.
Which is why the idea of an Uber, taxi, something of that nature could be something to look into. I firmly believe that the first thing that Newmarket can do is work with what already exists. Coast, obviously, we all know has limited service, but Coast On Demand, Route 7 On Demand, is available to all residents of Newmarket. It's 4 days a week. You do have to call a day ahead, and book the ride. And there's parameters, I believe, and I don't want to speak for it, but parameters that someone, and I think Joe might have heard some of this before, if they need to be within 3/4 of a mile of what would be considered the fixed route system. But it will pick you up. It'll take you where you need to go. The fare is very reasonable, less than $5. I don't know if they've raised it at all lately, but that's a service that's currently available. Now, it only will go between Newmarket and Exeter. It doesn't, that's what the route. But it can help somebody hook up with the train station in Exeter, for example. Or it can help them, hook up, it can get them to Exeter Hospital or whatever that case may be. There's also the Meals on Wheels Senior Transportation does provide rides for seniors, and I believe that's a fast 60 years and over on different towns, Mondays and Fridays for Newmarket residents. So one simple thing, and then there is Ready Rides, which is a volunteer program, and I will speak, I know that one of the things that could be done is to encourage Newmarket residents to volunteer for Ready Rides. It's a very easy way to volunteer. Once they go through the orientation program and background checks, that sort of thing, there is a software system, a secure software system that volunteers log into and say, okay, I've got time on Monday. Oh, Great Aunt Tilly needs to go here or there. And so the volunteers do choose each week what they want to do. And that's something, much like my program works. But correct me if I'm wrong, and I could be very, very wrong. I'm picturing that what you're looking at right now is more that population that doesn't fit into the molds of seniors. Excuse me, our older neighbors, I don't like senior citizens, I take personal, but our older neighbors and friends, as well as those with disabilities. You're looking at working people who, for whatever reason, don't drive, don't have a car, are having car problems and don't have the ability to get it fixed. So you're looking at a population that doesn't fit the molds, and unfortunately right now most federal funding for community transportation is directed to older adults and adults with disabilities. So you really are looking at programs that probably wouldn't qualify for a lot of things. The reason the Uber thing would interest me, both Exeter and Seabrook have taxi voucher programs. They are by town statute, they are for older adults and adults with disabilities. But that's just their chosen restrictions. In Seabrook, they have contracted with a specific taxi company, and this is the glitch here, which is out of Salisbury. So due to interstate commerce laws, that taxi company can come into Seabrook, they can come into a neighboring town in New Hampshire, but they can't go north, they can't go to Hampton, they can't go to Exeter. But they can, and in Seabrook a lot of people do go into Anna Jake's, they do go into Salisbury, Amesbury, and they can do that. But in Seabrook, I know it's run through the Recreation Department, and once people register, every month they get a booklet of coupons, so that it's a set fare, going from Seabrook to Amesbury or to Newburyport used to be, and once again it may have gone up, but it used to be about $7 one way, which is considerably less than a taxi. Or they can tool around and, for a flat rate, take people to, errands throughout Seabrook. The Exeter program works a little bit differently. People buy a booklet of coupons. It's also run through the Recreation Department. Why rec departments were chosen to run these programs is beyond me. But that's who. And in Exeter, and they've been doing it on and off for years, and certainly that's right down the street to talk to them. People buy a booklet of $20 worth of coupons. Each coupon is worth $1, and that covers 50% of the fare. So they will pay 50% of the fare that's on the meter, and at the end of the month, the taxi company submits the rest to the town, and the town reimburses them. And technically, what's intriguing about that one, I'm not sure how Seabrook funds their program. In Exeter, people buy those coupons in advance. So technically, in a perfect world, after the initial launch of the program, it's self-funding. I go in and I buy $20 worth of coupons, and that money goes into the till for reimbursements. And then, when it's time, when those $20 are used, they get reimbursed. And a lot of people will buy multiple packets of coupons and not use them. So that, I don't know enough about the ins and outs of Uber. I mean, I've used Uber. I've used Uber very successfully. I have no problem with it. But how they're structured in terms of insurance and that sort of thing, I don't know. But I could see something like that working for the population you're talking about, except the town would have to decide if it's a town subsidized program, what are the parameters? I mean, you obviously don't want everybody in town
Yeah.
having the ability to get subsidized tickets for a taxi or an Uber. So there would have to be parameters, and, you know, obviously it would probably be income. In which case, who's going to administer it? You know, quite frankly, my first thought was somebody with a housing department, or somebody in town who is already dealing
Working with
with
that
income
population.
questions. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you don't, I hate the idea that people have to jump through hoops to get a ride. I really do. I mean, it's crazy, it's insane, but that's where we are. I don't think that people, as I said, I would think that the town, should the town decide to go that route, there would obviously have to be guidelines, there would have to be decisions, you know, who can use it, what purpose? You know, do you want to subsidize somebody's ride to go to Newington to go to the movies? Or is it going to be for rides for specific, you know, medical needs, work, you know, essentials? Those are guidelines that, you know, you'd have to make, those, you know, somebody would have to make those decisions. And then once again, who would administer it, and who would you contract with? I don't know if there's, I mean, the only taxi companies I know of right now are out of Portsmouth. I don't know if there are any in Durham. I'm sure there's some in Dover.
There are some in Dover. I used a few services other than Uber and Lyft, and there's Annie's Taxi, which I think is either Dover or Portsmouth. Well, I don't want to, I shouldn't name specific ones,
Yeah,
but yeah,
but-
you're right, there are either in Portsmouth or Dover.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll tell you, you know, if you want me to come to Newmarket, I'm gonna charge you for both ways of the ride, and this is what it's gonna cost, and they,
Right, and you get, I mean, it's, and the reality is that the fact of having taxis and having that availability, I think, is a very positive thing. And we have to acknowledge the fact that the taxi companies are paying all sorts of insurance, and they're paying to maintain vehicles, and there's a lot of cost to the kinds of service they provide, which is where volunteer programs do, you know, it is a cost savings, no doubt, because, you know, we offer mileage reimbursement, but you know, the drivers are volunteers, and they're using their own vehicles for the most part, so, you know, our costs are nominal. But I don't know that a volunteer program would be it can be a piece of the puzzle, and you already have a volunteer program that I would,
Right.
you know, encouraging. But once again, whether this is all going to be energy efficient, that's a whole different ball, you know, if you could find an Uber fleet that was all electric, that would be very energy efficient. Yeah,
right?
but pie in the sky at this point.
I think with Uber, the drivers, in fact, I know because I've asked them, they own their own vehicle.
Right.
In fact, some people use it as a way to make their car payment so they can afford a better car.
Yep.
And then Uber reimburses them for insurance and maintenance, or they pay for maintenance, actually. I'm not entirely sure about the insurance either, but yeah, we were thinking something of an Uber type situation with it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do see that as being the most flexible. And, you know, I don't know whether the town would want to do it directly with Uber, or
Right.
come up with, you know, Newmarket's own, you know, nifty
App
little,
and
you know,
service, yeah.
apps and services.
Our charge is kind of like, for the environment, energy and environment.
Right.
Okay, and part of that is, okay, what can we do to improve public transportation as opposed to reliance on
Right.
individual cars? So that's kind of like, you know,
That's
what can
where
we
it
do to
fits in.
encourage public transportation or
Yeah.
improve
And-
it?
Yeah, and that's where I really would encourage the town, and I should be really careful, are we being recorded, or am I just?
You're being recorded, but that's okay.
Okay, yeah, all right. Well, because I'm going to mention other towns where I have previously resided. Okay, I think from that point of view, I absolutely agree with you that the best possible solution would be to increase public transportation through Newmarket, going to more than just Exeter, or at least public transportation that would connect to other transit hubs.
Right.
Whether it was getting to the Dover Transit Station, whether it was there are other transit hubs. That would be, and that would mean we do have a public transportation system with Coast. Um, and Coast is right now, as everyone's dealing with its own kinds of issues. But over the years, over the years, some towns opted to not continue to fund Coast because the residents of their town weren't using the service. And that started to impact, once again, it's a domino effect. That started to impact the ability of Coast to run a more comprehensive service. Many of the leaders in some of these towns, these were decisions that were made 12 plus 13 years ago. So there have been changes in leadership in those towns and changes in the population. The population of those towns are getting older. And those people are beginning to realize that they have limited options for getting from point A to point B. So perhaps working with Coast to try to figure out ways, and maybe it's town leaders to town leaders talking to other town leaders about, is it worth looking into, funding.
Well, the town does give a grant to Coast.
Yes, you
and-
do. I know you do.
And they're actually increasing it this upcoming
Yeah.
budget cycle.
But the piece that has to work is for not only Newmarket to do that, but for Newfields and Stratham and Greenland
Right.
and everybody down the line, and that's where it falls apart. Newmarket has been, Newmarket continues to fund it, Exeter continues to fund. And, yeah, I know Newington does, but if you even go to the other side, Portsmouth does, Greenland does not, Rye does not, Northampton does not. So that's why the service stops in Portsmouth and doesn't go down Route 1. It doesn't go down so because Coast, unbeknownst to many people, Coast is a 501c3 nonprofit. In order to access federal funding, they have to have a certain amount of matching funds from the communities they serve. And that's what they get from the various towns. And it's usually about 20 to 30% match to federal funds. So that's the missing piece. So Newmarket may, Durham does not. And I don't know that Durham ever has because Wildcat technically functions there, but Wildcat no longer comes into Newmarket. So that's, New Hampshire has, we are a home where everybody, towns are, working within their own budgets. But transportation is not, it's not a Newmarket issue. Newmarket people don't stay in Newmarket. Newmarket people have to go to other towns. So that's the biggest, that is the big, number one biggest hindrance is how do you get the other towns along the route to buy back in? That I don't have an easy answer for. I was speaking to an older woman in one of the towns involved, and this person has lost a good portion of her sight, and was stunned when she realized she goes, Coast Plus used to come here. It doesn't anymore. And she goes, what do we do? And I said, get a hold of your town manager. He's a good guy. He'll listen. He's very, and and that's part of what it's going to take is for people in those towns to start saying, we need the service. Transportation is expensive. It's very expensive. There's no two ways about it. But, I give one example that I've been using constantly recently is one of the gentlemen that we do in Ride Rides to, said to me not long ago that he just said, Carol, Cass, these rides to dialysis, it's what's keeping me out of a nursing home. It's what's letting me stay home with my cat. Transportation may be expensive, but a bed in the county nursing home is very expensive. And that's somehow or another, it's, cost benefit. Helping people, whether they be younger people, older people, helping people get to work, helping people stay healthy and independent. It's all economically beneficial to the community. But that's very like existential, and people don't, we're a concrete world. But that's, Joe, that's the biggest problem with public transit, is Newmarket, and I'm very glad, and I think Newmarket, I think the towns that have continued to fund it are very wise. It's much easier to have a program and build it than to start from scratch after you've canceled the program. But it's, you've got to get those pieces in between.
I wonder, as Joe said, our charge is really more about
Public,
the energy piece.
right.
How do we get a transportation system that's viable enough to encourage people to use that instead of their cars? Although there is a huge need, one of the things that got me interested in an on-demand service is if you follow the Facebook pages for the various Newmarket community pages, once in a while there is someone who'll post and say, do you know anyone that's hiring, and they have to be in walking distance of downtown because that's where I live and I don't have a car. So we need those people, but if we have the service and subsidize it on like a means test system, but open it to everybody,
Yep.
maybe it would interest people more than Uber or Lyft using the town service, and then
Yep.
feel less.
If there was, it would, it has been a long time since Coast ran, the bus down 33 from, it used to, start like in Newington,
Yeah.
started down 33, and then it swung into Newmarket, came back, went through Stratham. It's been a long time, but one of the, and I know that, a significant number of people from Dover or Rochester would take the bus if they, and bring, come to work in, Stratham or Newmarket or Greenland, wherever it may be. And really, it was a bargain because at that point in time, I think it was $1.50. So, at that point in time, and I'm going to say this 15 years ago plus, somebody could get on the bus in Farmington, get as far as the Newington Mall for $1.50, and then for another $1.50, get on a bus and get to Exeter. So for $3, you could get that far. The difficulty was it ran multiple runs earlier in the morning. It was definitely a commuter run. And there was a long time lag. There was a bus out of Exeter, and a friend of mine once decided, an Exeter gentleman decided he was going to take public transit. He had a doctor's appointment in Portsmouth. But once he looked at the bus schedule, he realized that the bus, in order to take the bus, he was going to have to leave 2 hours before his appointment, and then he was going to have a 2.5-hour lag after the appointment before the bus came back. Because we're not Boston. We're not a city where there's, lots going on. There's a lot of space, and that's, so in order for people to find public transportation attractive, it has to be a more frequent run, which is why I sometimes think that a lot of smaller buses that that would hook up to transit centers somewhere, so that then there would be connections. The other thing is public education. And public education is something that could start to happen now. We're not, New Hampshire, we're not an area where people are used to taking buses. People who live in cities know that, you're going to take free connections, and it might take you 45 minutes to move 5 miles. That's just the way it is. But that's not what we're used to. So there is a lot of public education involved. And travel training, it's actually an actual thing, is teaching people how do you use Coast on Demand.
Thank you, Carol.
I don't think and I don't have any brilliant ideas for you. I do understand what the problems are.
It's helpful to have the lay of the land and the context for why we're at the point we're at. This has been really helpful. Thank you.
Okay, oh, good. I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to bring to you, but I'm glad I brought something that was worthwhile.
Absolutely.
I think.
Yes.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions for Carol?
It gives us something to think about anyway, at least from the town side too, I'm
Yeah.
kind of like in two hats here.
Right.
You
I'm
know,
just thinking about this
if Coast,
Uber thing. I don't know if the town maybe could give an incentive to one
What?
Uber driver who had an EV,
Mhm.
giving him free charging and paying, you know, as part of the fare for people who qualify. But, you know, only give those grants to to Uber drivers who drive an EV.
Mhm.
That-
It's tying with our purpose.
Yeah, I mean, that, and I think that's what, you know, for, in the immediate future, that's exactly the kind of thinking you're gonna have is a little bit outside the box of, you know, to increase transit options in Newmarket and at the same time honoring your mission of energy efficiency.
I think maybe one of the things, we can talk more about it, but one of the things we think about is, again, if Coast does drop their service to Newmarket, we can make recommendations to the town saying, okay, you had this grant money that you were given to the Coast, take this grant money and here's a potential way to, you know, help with public transportation.
Is there concern that that might
Hmm?
is there concern that that might happen?
Well, they were going to, for 2024,
Mhm.
at one point, they were thinking that they may have to stop service to Newmarket because they were running a deficit, but something came up and they got
Yeah.
extra money, so.
Yeah, they, no, the state did put some money in, and that funding that the state put in is being used as matching funds to reinforce existing programs. It's not enough funding to start anything new.
Correct,
But,
but it
yeah.
allows them to keep what they're currently doing for
so,
Newmarket
yeah.
for 2024, but I'm not optimistic that that's gonna continue into 2025 or
No,
whatever, so.
it's been, you know, and I think, you know, that's one of those things that perhaps is really getting a group of people and calling Coast and go to, take the Route 7 on demand into downtown Exeter and go out to lunch. But just use it, find out how it works. Eh,
I think that's part of, you know, maybe part of our type thing too, is, yeah, like you say, public education. Hey, everybody, you do have this public transportation option.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's very imperfect, but at least, as I said, you know, at least it could get somebody to the train station. And I know it's crazy, but you could take the train from Exeter to Durham if you had, I mean, it makes no sense because you should be able to, but you could.
But if we could do something, so say like, to hook up with Wildcat or hook up with Coast, that goes, you know, just to transportation centers or whatever.
Yeah.
Or Exeter Hospital or Shaw's or something like that.
Right,
Just,
right.
you know, a couple of places.
Yeah, so I mean, and there's, you know, and there's lots of, I know that, you know, within the healthcare industry, there's lots of discussion about bolstering transportation. So there are partners that you may not think about that, you know, to start looking at. There are partners who might be interested in, you know, looking at some ways to bolster the system. I know that, you know, we tend to focus on, you know, our area. You know, in my case, I'm not a transportation person. That wasn't my background. I came on board to hire volunteers, you know, to recruit volunteers. My background's in education. It just happens that the service our volunteers provide is transportation. So that I've always felt that I'm kind of an outsider to all this. And, you know, I'm the one who sits there and says, well, why? This shouldn't be so hard. This is ridiculous. And it shouldn't be. But I do think, you know, some of the creative thinking that's coming out of this already is really where we need, you know, it goes down to the old, there's no such thing as a bad idea. Just start writing down anything that comes to mind, and somewhere in there will be some things, but I do think it's, you know, working outside of Newmarket to try to get more people involved. Because transportation, it's part of the employment issue, it's part of everything is, it's all tied together.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Have fun.
Okay, so we have
We
a
do have a
quorum now.
quorum. Patrick is here.
Patrick, how are you?
Sorry, I was
No.
trying to get, I did get my vaccination, but I will warn you, if you go to Rite Aid, prepare to wait.
Oh,
Their
and
pharmacist
wait.
quit,
And wait,
yeah.
and wait. I had a 6:40 appointment, they didn't get me in until almost 7.
Oh, wow.
So, but yeah, they're definitely
I'm supposed to get mine
struggling
on Sunday.
apparently.
Yeah. At least people are getting it.
Yeah,
Well, but a lot of people would probably leave if you told them that they were gonna wait 20 minutes, so that's bad. I felt like that's a
And hence
bad
the problem with buses.
experience, so I'm concerned about that.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
But,
Thank you, Karen.
yeah,
So should we approve the minute, go back and approve the minutes? Anyone had a chance to read them already? There was one, I didn't mark it down, but there was when you meant the word formally, M-O-F-O, but you wrote formerly. And that's nitpicking though, and I can't remember where that was.
If you can send me an updated thing,
Yeah.
I can do that.
Okay, great. I will mark it down and I will send that to you.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of September 27th with your edits that you supplied.
Does anyone want a second?
can we do that without
Second.
actually seeing what it is?
Well, she just said formally, they're typos.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just thought we had to know exactly where it was, so that we know.
Let me read through them as I kind of agree with Patrick, I guess.
Because my understanding is if you're gonna edit the minutes, you have to point out the edit and then say, I'd like to submit it with these edits.
Okay.
So if we're going to edit it,
Okay,
I
all right.
think we'd have to move it to the next one, right?
Yeah.
It's right in the middle of the second page. Joe gave an update on the airplane
Yes.
community ballot, it's the third line in that paragraph.
Okay.
Formerly approved.
Thank you, yes, next step is for town council to formerly, and I'm sure he meant formerly. Looks like one of those autocorrect things.
No, I'm a terrible
Okay.
speller. Usually,
Okay, that was,
Word highlights it in red, and so I usually catch them that way, but.
Okay, so now that we have that, thank you, Patrick.
Was there anything else?
No, that was it. So can we have a new motion and second to this?
So, again, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of September
And I'll-
27, 2023, with the suggested edit changes that you made.
Second that.
Great, all in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful, okay. So Ellen and I both had a lot of upheavals in our life this month. We didn't get to the master plan document to finish off that last section. And I apologize for that. It was very hectic. We both started new jobs. Ellen had some, she's moved and she had a legal thing to take care of. But we will have it for next month. I know we keep saying that, but this is, now that we know that we're going to have expert help on this, and what we really need to do is just bullet points. This is gonna go much faster than the first section did. So, yes.
And then also, I got some additional information about the scope of work for the master plan update, so,
Great.
if it's all right with you guys, this isn't a finalized version, so I don't necessarily want to print it out, but I'll at least let you know on the energy piece of it. The scope of work for SRPC includes drafting a couple of new chapters, one of them in energy. So they will be drafting a chapter, and they will be working with the Energy and Environment Advisory Committee. I'm not sure exactly how that involvement is going to go. I think it will likely be a member of the committee that's included in a master plan development committee.
Okay.
So there'll be a representative from this committee that's involved in the drafting of that chapter. And they will also be conducting an energy audit, so some of the information that Joe, you sent me, a couple of highlighted items on town current energy use for facilities and vehicles. A lot of that I didn't spend time getting into it, knowing that SRPC is going to gather a lot of that information. and probably has a lot of it, so I have those bullet points that I will be kind of transferring to them to, I'll provide the brief information because I know where to get that, but, they are gonna go through all of that and give a full energy profile on energy consumption sources of current energy use and greenhouse gas emissions. And then they'll be identifying opportunities for energy efficiency improvements across various sectors like buildings, transportation, and other infrastructure. So
That's basically what we're trying to do.
yeah, they have a lot of
Wonderful.
expertise in all this stuff, and I wanted to share this information because I don't want you to
Yeah,
waste a lot of
try to
your time.
reinvent the wheel
Yeah.
when we don't have the expertise and they do.
Right, and
Great.
but I think that what would be really helpful to be able to provide is through that representative that's gonna be working with them,
Mhm.
provide some of the bigger picture goals and maybe try to outline some potential targets for reaching some of those goals, because that's where they can kind of use that to mold, um, reasonable recommendations for some of these
Okay,
improvements, and they're also going to be developing strategies for promoting renewable energy adoption, which I think is kind of goes hand in hand with some of the work they're doing with community power as well. So
great.
now you guys know.
Yeah,
And when
thank you, Lindsay.
I asked Bart about a deadline, and he actually did encourage that the committee get it to, turn it in to him before the end of this year.
Okay, that's easy.
Yeah.
We can
So,
do that.
so I think, you know, wherever you are, you know, I think with Lindsay's additional information, you're probably pretty close to turning the document in that you have.
Yeah,
And, you know, then it'll come back around once it's, you know, that committee's created.
I think we're actually in pretty good shape in that we've got the good, you know, outline.
Yeah.
And if they can go in and fill in all the spots, I think we end up with
Yeah.
a really
Yeah.
good product in the
They
end.
can
Yeah.
fill a lot of that in, and they're also, the good thing about them drafting the chapter is that there'll be consistency. Is one of the things that they're working towards with this kind of overhaul of the master plan, so
Yeah.
the chapters don't look like they're totally independent. There'll be a consistency in the format and the flow of the chapter sections, so they may reorganize some of that stuff, but
Sure.
a lot of the content will be very useful.
great. Okay, thank you, Lindsay. Well, that's really encouraging. Update on community power. Charlie.
All right, so here is the current status or timelines. Again, subject to change, but mid-December, Community Power will announce the new rates for the first half of 2024. The town of Newmarket, or the town manager, on December 29th, has to make a decision whether we want to do a go or no-go decision, whether we'll do a go or no-go, and what the default option will be. There's like 4 options of electric power that you can get. There's Granite Basic, which is, I think, is like 33% renewable energy. Then there's Granite Plus, which is like 40-something, and then it goes higher up to 100%.
Right.
So he has to recommend 2 things. One,
which way he's leaning?
yeah, no, I'm assuming, well, no, I don't know, I don't want to speak for the town manager.
Okay.
I'm guessing it'll be Granite Basic, which is the cheapest rate.
Yeah.
Okay, but I
Yeah.
can't speak for him.
Okay.
So anyway.
At least he's leaning towards accepting something.
So that will be 29th, he has to do the go, no-go decision and select what the default service will be. So in January, there'll be a public education campaign. February, everybody will get emails or mail in them, get mail telling them that they're going to be put into community power. If they're an Eversource customer, those people that are on net metering right now will not be included in this particular round. People will also be given the opportunity to opt out and stay with Eversource or go with some other company if they want. In March, they would actually switch over to the new community power. In April, that people would see their first bill. So that's the current schedule, still subject to change.
Did you find out, we had passed around those promotional materials and talked about the visibility of doing something like that ourselves, and did you find out if CP&H provides funds for those?
They don't provide a whole lot of funds, but they can do a couple of things for us. They'll send out the mailings. I do have a bunch of flyers to put out. Again, we can put them out at the elections, or we can stick them up in the town clerk's office or something. The town manager caught an error on that, so we fixed the error. So we have a bunch of those that we can pass out. This talk about Community Power said that they can make a banner that we can maybe stick up in the front of the town hall here,
Great.
announcing it, but I have to talk to the town manager about that. But yes, they can help us out with some promotional activity.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, because that has to start in, you said January? Yeah, public education. This comes right around the corner. All right, is there anything else on community power status? That was pretty comprehensive.
Again, there was another item to talk about, help with the advertising,
Yeah.
But again, yeah, they can help us out a little bit with that,
Okay,
to get some flyers and maybe a banner, like I said.
so they can provide flyers.
We do have, yes, we've got some right now that I
All
can
right.
stick out there.
We just have to figure out how to produce them. What part of that does CP&H help with?
They'll produce some flyers for us.
Fantastic.
Okay.
That's basically,
The
because
hardest
that's the
part
most
for
expensive part.
us is,
Yeah.
where do we put them?
Sure, that'll be on the town. Okay, great. All right, other update items from September. The Facebook page. Peter Nelson sent me an invitation to be a community manager of our Facebook page, and he sent you one too.
Yes, yeah.
I don't know if I'm on some ghost page or something, but I don't see any indication that I have any admin controls, and it doesn't tell me that it's a page I manage. I don't know if you've
I
looked
haven't
into
sent
it
her
at
my
all.
email because I'm not sure what my Facebook email ID is.
Okay.
How to even find it.
Well,
I assumed it was my email ID that I had before, but I don't think that that's the case.
Peter sent me a screenshot that shows that you and I are listed as community managers. So I'm gonna have to have him send me the actual link and look at it and understand where am I looking that I should, where am I not looking that I should be looking to figure this out.
I did select something that, he sent out and said, to be a manager, and I clicked that.
Great.
But he said send me your Facebook ID, and again, I assumed my Facebook ID was my email ID that I normally use for all my junk stuff and whatever.
Oh, yeah,
and-
he was
and
talking
evidently
about,
that's not.
it's the link on your, like when you click on your own profile, it has it has its own URL, its own kind of internet address, and that's what he was asking us for. But it looks like he got you in, so I'm sure I'll figure that out somehow. I've been using Facebook for years. I'm a librarian, and I actually used to be an admin on this page, so I don't know why I'm having so much difficulty. So we went over Joe, do you want to update people on the work on shared documents?
So when we have a document out there, we can work on it independently. What you can't do is you can't have like a quorum of people working on the document at the same time and communicating with each other contemporaneously. In other words, it can't be 4 or 5 of us editing the document online in real time and talking to each other. But
Okay.
you can go in to make your comments on a document, look at it, make comments. Somebody else go in and make comments. When you come together as a public group, that's when you can make decision on, oh yeah, do we want to change that? Do we want to change that? But you can edit the documents no problem.
Okay, great. That makes sense. Did you happen to ask specifically, can we send I guess if everyone is allowed to work independently, then it's okay to give everyone the link and let them comment. As long, or let them work on it.
Yeah.
Okay, grant opportunity with New Hampshire Department of Energy.
I sent something for Lindsay to, there's this lady in Newmarket, Elizabeth McKenna, that works for Governor Shaheen's office. She sends out a monthly newsletter, plus there's so many other grant options or grant things out there, the state, whatever. I just don't know how to get a handle on how, what are the grants and how do we go about going out?
Yeah, I think the first step is being aware of some of the things like Elizabeth McKenna's, email blast, but also I sat in, I'm not sure if it was yesterday or the day before, but the webinar that described one of the particular funding opportunities and just kind of gives an overview and outline of what's eligible and stuff like that. So being aware of those things and sitting in on some of those webinars to learn a little bit more about the variety of opportunities. There are people asking me, there was that one that I sat in on, and now there's more for construction funding. So we don't have anything that's ready to go ahead with, so we don't have anything that's eligible for that at this time. And then there was another one that Steve forwarded to me that is for a variety of phases of renewable energy projects, but it's really an incentive that's targeting anything other than photovoltaic systems. So we currently only have opportunities, or we've only investigated options for some solar arrays with photovoltaic. But there are things, and I think as I get more involved and learn more about some of these, we can start to kind of tease out which ones are viable options. It will also help as we move ahead with a master plan and have some targeted goals identified that we can work towards, because then we can kind of start to fit a project with a goal, with a funding source, and kind of bring all of that stuff together. So.
Can I ask you to just, at a very, very high level, the Kellam Dam, is there a possibility of putting a generator on the dam? Forget about whether we have the infrastructure, wiring and all that, but is there an option or a possibility that we could, if we had the proper funding?
At a very high level, I would say probably, because at one point there was power generation at that dam. I don't know enough about the dam itself and configuration and property ownership. I know that we own the dam, but literally just the dam, and the Tame Walls on either side are owned by other entities. So there's not a lot of space to work with that one. There definitely need to be some partnership.
So that thing you just mentioned, is that, okay, other than photovoltaic, maybe there's an option there with the dam?
Hydropower is an option. Wind power is an option. It's not necessarily everybody's favorite option. There are there's geothermal options. There are a number of energy efficiency types of projects that could fit in a whole bunch of different other projects too. Is the other piece of this. We're looking at renovations and additions at a couple of town facilities, and as we move forward with the renovations and additions, looking into energy efficiencies. I mean, it's not a lot you can do with site layout, but sometimes just siting of a building and orientation and allowing more natural light can save a whole lot of energy. So other things like that, knowing that we have some general goals to look at as we move other projects forward, will be helpful to kind of align with those funding opportunities and sources.
So could I ask you to just, at a very, very, very high level, don't spend a whole lot of time on it, is there a possibility that we could put a generator on the dam? Is that something you could look into? And again, at a very, very, just a, yeah, it's a possible thing, and costing millions of dollars, blah, 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 whatever, but.
Are you asking more in terms of, like, is there sufficient flow to, like, that would generate enough power?
No, I'm pretty sure there's sufficient flow,
Okay.
okay? Just, and you ruled out, we own the dam, but we don't own some of the
Right.
property. If we were to get the waivers or whatever, easements or whatever,
Yep,
to put it, I guess, is it possible to,
that kind of stuff,
yeah,
okay.
again, not a whole lot of time spent on it, just a very high level, yeah, you can do that, but it, here are some of the issues that might run into.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest issue, Joe, is that when that dam was providing energy, the Newmarket Manufacturing Company that was the owner of the dam and getting the energy also controlled Lake Pawtuckaway, the Pawtuckaway Reservoir, and it used that as its pulse to send water down the Lamprey to generate power, because there's a large part of the year where there isn't very much flow in the Lamprey River, and that's why that system was created by the Newmarket manufacturing system. Most people don't know that, but there wasn't sufficient pulse in the river to provide consistent energy without that. Today you could not do that because that's a state-owned lake, and there's all kinds of restrictions of property owners and et cetera, et cetera. But that's an important part to realize about the power generation that historically occurred at the Lamprey River.
Okay, so I don't know enough about, hydroelectric, but, so even if we had a generator there, in some parts of the year it's generating, more than it's generating a bunch of stuff to go out, and then other parts of the year it's not generating there, is that a problem?
Well,
I don't
it's
know enough
probably more of a cost issue, right? It's like the investment that would be required to get return on your investment, right? Energy produced is not that great right now. There's just not that much dam technology out there for power generation that's gotten to the next level. It's not something that's being focused on as far as power generation. I think Lindsay actually pointed out the easiest way for Newmarket to actually reduce our fossil fuel intake is actually energy efficiency. Like, the money you don't spend on energy is actually the cheapest way to cut your fossil fuel use.
That's true for everybody. Of course, it's not one or the other.
But
You know,
it's
so-
just,
and,
that's just
to
what I
the-
understand
to
about the
issue,
dam. in
when there
Newmarket.
isn't flow, I mean, that's the beauty of net metering, is that when you're getting a lot of flow and you're generating a lot of power, then, I don't know, you're powering with it, you're powering some device, something with the power from the dam, and when you're generating more than you need, then it goes back into the grid and you get credit. And just as you do with solar panels. And that's whereas when they're running a factory, they've got to be able to keep that generator going enough to run the factory. But for us, it has to be something that net metering is, of course, and sooner or later the co-op will have net metering, I think.
It's also a question of, like, scale, right? So there aren't that many sites that are coming online for hydropower in the country, right? So you're not getting that scale of investment to see technological improvement that you are with energy efficient building energy efficiently, battery storage or solar panels or some other sources which have that scale, that's why you're seeing leaps in the technology, whereas again, there's just not that many dam, sited energy development occurring to create that scale that's advancing the technology.
Well, I think part of that too is, though, they're not building a whole lot of new dams.
Exactly.
Okay, and, but we do have one that's sitting there and isn't gonna go anywhere, and if we
Right.
could,
Right, it's not about the dam, it's about the hydro power infrastructure that you would need and getting that scale or that investment.
Sounds to me like a great project for UNH mechanical engineering graduate student.
I think
Feasibility
that's,
study, do it for free.
that would be further down the line. The
Do a
first
paper
question
route,
is,
you know.
is it even feasible to do it? Okay,
Yeah.
is it feasible?
But I would think that, you've got a university nearby, and universities love to tackle projects like that. It's good challenging
But
stuff.
is that something you think you could do? Again, very, very high level, and said, yeah, you could potentially, or no, you
Yeah,
can't.
I can get some very basic feasibility and feedback on a couple of things.
Speaking of dams, what about the dam on Packers Falls Road? It's nowhere nearly as powerful, but no.
Up in Durham?
No, here in Newmarket, right by
Another
the
dam?
cemetery.
Oh, yeah, down there.
That field water
That's-
treatment plant.
Right.
Yeah, down
So
there.
you got a building there already.
I don't think that has anywhere near the waterfall as the one down here in Callan.
Yeah, that would be more powerful. I'm just thinking,
Um,
Is that even operational, Lindsay?
No.
I didn't think so.
But there's a building, and you put, the stuff that you need in there.
There is a building there, I'm not sure how,
Right by the cemetery?
yeah, the old wastewater treatment, or not wastewater, sorry, the water treatment plant is there adjacent to that dam. I don't know, I can't say for sure what the town intends to do with that building.
Yeah, they're working on that now. what they're
It
gonna
kind of
do,
seems
but-
unless there are regulations against it, the answer has to be at a very high level, yes, maybe.
Well, can I just, let's concentrate on the Callan dam first, if it's feasible.
There are people with streams going on their property, using to generate their power for their houses. That does
Just-
happen.
Power to put back into the grid
Yeah,
and get,
same thing with solar panels.
Yeah, hydropower doesn't
More
only
expensive.
come from dams, there are some tidal opportunities too.
Interesting. Okay, is there any other business that anyone wants to bring up? Would someone like to move to adjourn?
So moved.
Let's go to bed.
Is there a second then? A second? All in favor of adjourning?
just quickly, our next meeting is when?
November 29th, which is the week after Thanksgiving. So it, given that we have to start thinking about public education for the CPNH by January, maybe it's a good idea to just keep the meeting. And we want to.
Before that, we've got to get the report in.
Yes, we have to get the report in, so we have to present it next month. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.